Two boys with one stone ring. Ring! Son of a bitch. Got the house to myself, the game on the big screen, two cold ones down, and more sitting in the mini cooler, right next to my lazy boy, and someone's calling on the phone. Better not be one of those asshole sales calls, or a robocall. Someone's getting their head bitten off. It was about 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night. My wife, Tracy, often worked late on Wednesdays, and I always made plans for a night out of fun or a relaxing night in. Tonight was a night in. I put away a medium meats pizza from Papa John's earlier with a couple of beers, then turned on the Cubs game and started to unwind with some more Coronas. I had two more in the little cooler next to me and another 6 in the fridge in the kitchen. This was going to be a good night. The wife would walk in around 10, take a quick shower, and we would be spooning by about 11. Wednesday was a quiet night at the Avondales. This phone call, however, was going to ruin my karma. I just knew it. But being the responsible guy I am, I answered it anyway. Turns out it was Chelle Tremaine, the wife of Tracy's boss, Jacques, who was practically hysterical. Seems Jacques had a heart attack while he was working with Tracy, my wife, who called 911, and the paramedics had transported him to the hospital in bad shape. Chelle told me Tracy went with Jacques in the ambulance and would need a ride home as Chelle intended to stay as long as Jacques needed her. I told her I was on my way and wished the best for Jacques. Jacques had been Tracy's boss for 22 years. She had started working for his software company right out of college and had moved up to where she was now his right-hand man, so to speak, as well as his work wife. I was already dating Tracy when she went to work for Jacques, and through the years our families have had occasion to do things together. He seemed to be a good guy. Tracy said he was a fabulous boss, and he took good care of Tracy in the paycheck department as well. Jacques, a citizen of France, is 10 years older than Tracy and I at 55. He is a handsome guy who works out and has a decent body for a guy his age. He's a dynamic personality, the center of attention in a crowd. Both men and women gravitate to him. I understand that God has a plan for all of us, regardless of how well we take care of ourselves. But I have to admit to being surprised that Jacques had a heart attack. I parked my car in a visitor's lot just off the emergency room, walked in, and asked about Jacques. I told the nurse at the desk that I was the husband of the woman who came in with him, and I was also looking for her. As I said, I noticed a pair of EMTs just off to my right. One quietly tagged the other on the forearm and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Cuck's here." Wonder which way this will go. Although he was looking in my direction, I had no clue as to what he was talking about. I didn't know what a cuck was, nor did I really worry about it. I was just looking for Tracy. 5 minutes later, Tracy and Chelle both came out of a room, tears streaming down both faces. They spotted me and headed over, and we embraced in a group hug. "He's gone, Rick," Tracy half wailed as we hugged. "He died a few minutes ago. Doctor said it was a massive heart attack. He's gone." I was stunned into silence as the three of us hugged in the hallway, both women bawling hard. Chelle, also a French citizen, had been married to Jacques for 35 years. They had married when they were both 20 and had come to this country when Jacques got a job with an American software company at the dawn of the computer age. They have a daughter, Amy, who is 3 years older than my daughter, Allison, who is 18, and the girls look enough alike that they could be sisters. Jacques treasured Amy. This was going to be very hard on her, I thought to myself. Just then, one of the EMTs came over to me and asked me if I was Tracy's husband. I said I was, and he handed me Tracy's purse, telling me she left it in the ambulance when they arrived at the hospital. I had separated myself from the crying women, and as I took it in my left hand, I thanked him and shook his right hand with mine. I then started to wrap the dangling strap around the purse to get it out of the way when I thought I saw a bra stuffed into the middle. That didn't make any sense to me, so I took a second look, and sure enough, there was a bra tucked into the purse. Things were so crazy when the women came out of the room crying that I never really took a good look at Tracy. She was indeed braless, I noticed. That was odd, I thought to myself. I don't know how much longer we stayed at the hospital with Chelle before she decided she needed to leave. Amy was going to get in from her university in the morning, and Chelle decided she needed to get some sleep. I drove Chell home, then took Tracy and me to our house. I figured I could help both women get their cars tomorrow, Chell from the emergency room lot and Tracy from the work lot. Tracy didn't say a word to me when we got in the door, heading right up to the main bathroom and getting in the shower. She joined me in the family room about 20 minutes later, her eyes red and swollen from all the crying. She sat on the sofa, and I got out of my lazy boy and joined her, pulling her in for a tight hug. She was breathing raggedly, and I felt her body rack with sobs. I wanted to ask her about the braless thing, considering she was supposed to be working with Jacques, but I didn't have the heart to go there with her tonight. Instead, I quietly held her for another 20 minutes until she said she was tired and going to bed. It was midnight, so I figured I would turn in with her. I called in for a personal day the next morning, and after getting a shower and shaving, I offered to take Tracy to the office to get her a car. She suddenly looked gut-punched and started to stammer before taking some time to breath and calm down. She asked me to take her to Chell's instead, and they would get a cab and go to the office and get some of Jacques' things. Then Tracy would drive Chell to the hospital to fill out some paperwork and collect Jacques' personal effects. I offered to help, but was quickly rebuffed. That actually worked out pretty well for me. I needed to find the EMTs who handled the emergency last night and get a couple of questions answered. After dropping off Tracy at Chell's and getting a brief update on how she was doing, I jumped back in the car and went straight to the hospital. I quickly was able to get the name of the EMTs who handled the emergency and was told where to find them. I found my targets at the fire station that I was directed to, and they remembered me from the night before. I looked at the one who had handed me Tracy's purse. His name tag listed him as Gage, and asked him directly where the run had started. For the second time in a short while, someone stammered out an answer to me. "What do you mean?" he asked, suddenly eyeing me suspiciously. "Nah. My wife and Jacques were supposed to be working, but you didn't pick them up at Softal, did you? Isn't that why you referred to me as cuck? Oh shit. Jesus, buddy. I didn't mean anything personal," he said, raising his voice. "It's just that we've seen enough of these runs where the two people checked into a room aren't husband and wife, and when the shit hits the fan, we're the bad guys. Shoot the goddamn messenger. Easy, Gage. I'm not trying to stick you with anything. I'm just trying to get to the truth. I had to look up cock, and I didn't like what I saw, but I don't figure that's your problem. Apparently, it's my problem if you tell me you picked them up anywhere other than Softal." Immoral. "We started the run at the West Side Hotel," Gage answered. "Seems they were about 15 minutes into it when the guy just grabbed his chest and keeled over on your wife. She actually had to push him off of her to get to the phone to call 911, and in the meantime, she gave him mouth to mouth. He was barely alive when we got him to the ER. I had the truth. I didn't need more. I thanked both of them and left. I could feel them watching me with pity in their eyes as I left. My mind was reeling as I drove home. Tracy was fucking Jacques when he just about died of a heart attack. How long had this been going on, I wondered. Then it struck me, actually thundered me. Our daughter Allison, and their daughter Allison, and their daughter Amy didn't just look alike by coincidence. They were sisters. Tracy had been fucking him for at least 19 years. How could I not have seen this before now? What a fucking trusting idiot. She and Jacques worked late at least once a week, sometimes twice, and then there were the occasional girls' nights out or work crew out nights. Was she fucking him all those times? What about on the business trips they took together? How did Chell not know? I'll admit I can be a clueless person sometimes, but how could a woman be that clueless, especially with the girls looking so much alike? And Chell was always around the business, Tracy noted, dropping in at all hours just to say hi to her husband or her. I thought they were good friends, the way it appeared. How could Tracy do that to Chell? Tracy's car was in the garage when I got home. She was sitting in the family room drinking a glass of wine when I walked in. Apparently, the look on my face told her I was unhappy. "What's wrong, sweetie?" she inquired. Although I wanted to play it cool, my anger got the best of me and I couldn't hold back. "No." "How long had you been fucking Jacques?" I blurted out, venom dripping from my voice as my volume rose. "He's Allison's father, isn't he?" Tracy dropped her wine glass as she shot up from the sofa. How could you say such a horrible thing to me? She screamed as she practically charged into me. She stopped about a foot from me, eyes glaring at lasers, and if looks could kill, I would have been dead on the spot. I wasn't about to back down. I was right, and I knew it. I held my ground, glaring back into those eyes. But I did cut my volume down to practically a whisper as I hissed. Tell me to kiss your axe, but don't dare lie to me and tell me I'm wrong. I'll knock your fucking teeth down your throat if you tell me a lie. Never before in our 20 years of marriage and our relationship before that had I cursed at my wife, let alone threatened to do her physical harm. To say she was shocked was an understatement. Her mouth flew open as if she was going to respond, but then apparently she realized I was serious and the lie died in her throat. She also took a quick hop back from me. Maybe it was the fact that I had flames coming from my eyes. You killed him, you know, I said to her as she sat back down on the sofa, ignoring the spilled wine on the carpet. The stress of cheating, together with the physical activity, was probably way too much for his heart. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner, considering how much you two were fucking. I could see by the stricken look on her face that I had hit a nerve. She looked down at her hands and fidgeted for what seemed like minutes, but in reality was probably only 10 seconds. Oh my God. Do you think I really killed him? She asked quietly. Neither nor why. I wonder if Chell is thinking that too. Why would Chell be thinking that, unless she knew about the two of you? Did she know about the two of you? She knew and approved almost from the beginning, Tracy said quietly. Sometimes she even joined us, especially when she came along on business trips. She always told me she thought it was right that I should get pleasure from Jacques for being such an important part of his business success, and she was glad that he had me taking care of him in the office while she took good care of him at home. It was my turn to take a seat. I felt dizzy, confused. So, I was the one out in left field? The only one not in the know. What about Allison? Allison has known for the last 4 years. She's good with it. Oh shit. Allison knows and she's good with it. Oh fuck, I howled, but that's actually not what I meant. Chell knows that Allison is Jacques' child. Imnan Diantrao. Chell knows and she's fine with it. Amy knows too. Well, I hope you all had several good laughs at stupid old Rick's expense. Even my daughter, his daughter, I guess, knew and didn't tell me. Fucking wonderful. I stormed out of the house. I wound up driving to a local park and just sitting there for a couple of hours. Tracy called my cell a couple of times, but I let the calls go to message. I just sat there and thought. I had always considered myself a smart guy, but when it came to Tracy, I was a complete dumbass. I never gave a thought to her cheating on me, and I trusted her so completely that I probably let several semi-obvious signs go right past me for at least 19 years. So fucking clueless. I wondered if there were others besides Jacques. A blizzard of thoughts was pounding my brain. I left the park when it started to get dark and drove home. As I entered the house from the garage, I could see the small light on in the kitchen above the table. Tracy sat in her usual spot with a cup of tea in front of her. She offered me a cup, but I declined and went to my liquor cabinet for something much stronger. I poured a scotch and sat down in my chair across from her. I can't even begin to tell you how sorry I am for hurting you, Tracy said quietly while looking down at her hands. I need to know the whole story now, I said, with more than a little edge to my voice. You need to tell me how you could do this to me while telling me you loved me. You need to tell me if you ever really loved me and respected me. Don't you dare doubt my love for you, ever, Tracy said with urgency in her voice. I've always loved you, and still love you. It's just that I also loved Jacques. Some people think that you can only love one person at a time, but I know that's not true, because I love to. Yos? Spare me. Get on with it, I said flatly. Tracy had joined Softal when the company was about a year old. As at many small companies, the few employees wore several hats, worked many hours, and became close emotionally. It was an exciting time for her, and I remembered her telling me of the struggles during our dates. She and I had been dating about a year when she joined the company. As the company got successful and grew, Tracy became Jacques' right-hand man, so to speak. He was the dynamic face of the company. She was, in essence, the glue that held everything together. She was an excellent multitasker, and Jacques grew dependent upon her as his other half. At the same time that the relationship was heating up between Tracy and me away from the office, the relationship between Jacques and Tracy was heating up at the office. It was almost as if her personal and work lives were running parallel, she noted. Although Tracy and Jacques kept it respectable in front of the rest of the office, she continued, away from the others they became even more attached, discussing everything from soup to nuts, from sex to politics. She was 24, beautiful, with an athletic body and long blonde hair. He was 34, a well-built man with long, wavy brown hair, an endearing smile, and an almost old-world courtliness. It was almost natural when they first made love on an old sofa in his office at the end of a long day, Tracy remembered. Because it felt so natural, Tracy said, she never had any guilt over sleeping with both me and Jacques, even when she and I got married a year later. It wasn't lust. It was a complete, loving bond, similar, but yet different to the one she and I shared. But she knew she could never tell me about it because of how I viewed infidelity. She loved both of us, and didn't want to give up either. While I wasn't told of the affair, Chell was told by Jacques after about 2 months. When he and Tracy figured out the affair was going to be long-term, he wanted to be completely honest with his wife, who had just given birth to the couple's first child. Chell and Amy would always have the largest place in his heart, Tracy said. Jacques told Chell, but he wanted to keep a piece of his heart for Tracy. Chell invited Tracy to spend a weekend with Jacques and her. I remembered her going away for the weekend under the pretense of an ill mother, and after that weekend, gave her blessing to the affair. When Tracy got pregnant several years later, it was Chell who took a worried Tracy into her heart, and it was she who decided how the narrative was going to go if the child was indeed Jacques. Since Jacques and I both had positive blood, that took care of the easy part. Since I was almost never around both girls together by myself, when someone did notice the girls' resemblances, Chell or Tracy almost always made some sort of flip remark about me getting around, before laughing it off to sheer coincidence. Both women knew that if I had a chance to think about it, I might get suspicious. Chell looked upon Tracy almost like a younger sister, and was in fact proud of Jacques' little family, Tracy noted. I sat dumbstruck during Tracy's confession. No, actually recollection, as at no point did she express regret for what she had done. She was merely recalling events. Tracy stopped talking and looked at me like she expected me to say something. The only thing I could think of at that point was to ask if she and Jacques even took a break when we were first married and having sex virtually every day of the week. She looked sheepish and looked away before finally answering, "No, I." That was such an exciting time in my life. I had 2 handsome men who loved me and desired me. And I was extremely horny all the time, she said. On the days where Jacques and I made love, I always made sure to clean myself real good down there in case we were going to have sex too. Yes, sometimes you did get sloppy seconds, but I tried to keep that to a minimum, and I never let you eat my pussy after Jacques and I made love. You're awfully considerate of you, I mumbled. The funny thing is, after all these years, I never really compared the two of you sexually, she continued. You were both good lovers, kind and attentive, and about the same size. It wasn't better sex with Jacques, just different. I have to admit that I was somewhat comforted by the fact that it wasn't just lust with a big-dicked stranger. But at the same time, I was hurt to the core by her admission that she loved him as well as me. I was raised to believe in one partner per person, one intimate soul for each of us. And while I might have been the one getting most of her intimacy, there was another out there sharing with me. Tracy put down her tea and stared into my eyes, trying to stare into my soul, I thought. I didn't have an answer to her unasked question, nor did I have any sage words. I put away my doers in the cabinet, put my glass in the sink, and headed upstairs to bed. Why, I'm not sure, because I knew without a doubt I wouldn't get any sleep on this night. Tracy came up to bed about 5 minutes later, curling in up against my back. I pretended to be asleep, so I wouldn't have to even say good night. I got up at my usual 5 a.m., did my morning routine, and headed off to work. Tracy was still in bed when I left, meaning she wasn't planning on going into softal. I suppose she and Chell will need to figure out what happens next with Jacques gone. That's their problem. Obviously, I had my own problem to figure out. Work has always been a source of solace for me when things weren't going right in my life, and I was hoping the trend would continue. Work for me is Mayoni Pharmaceuticals, where I am the vice president of sales. Even though I'm 45, I am one of the new breed in the industry. By degree, I'm a chemist, so unlike most of the guys in my industry leading sales, I actually know how the products are made and exactly what they do. I've even been involved in creating one of our products, cockrazitol, a pill which helps lower women's libidos for those who are too highly sexed. That has been a great seller for us, and I have profited handsomely from that. I also make a very nice salary, and with Tracy's nice salary, we were doing very well for ourselves. Upscale house in a trendy neighborhood, 2 nice cars, great vacations. Neither one of us will be hurting financially when we get divorced. There, I thought it. The dreaded D word, ward. I hadn't given it any thought until just then, probably because it was a foregone conclusion in my mind from the moment I found out Tracy was cheating. With Allison off at college and out of the house, there is really no reason for us to stay together. Aside from the fact that Tracy ripped my heart out, this shouldn't be a big deal. My boss, Arnold Kramer, and I have worked together for 18 years. After 5 years working as a chemist at another pharmaceutical firm, I met Arnie at an industry convention, and we got to talking about a lot of stuff. He is the one who said I should try sales, and then he offered me a spot in his company. I liked the idea of the challenge, and moved over. Arnie was 100% right in his assessment of my skills, and we've both benefited handsomely from that. And not only do we work well together, but it turns out he's a hell of a good guy, and we've developed what I hope will be a close lifelong friendship. Arnie has been married to his wife, Lauren, for about 30 years. He has 2 grown children and 5 grandchildren. He's 52 years old, acts like he's 30. A lot of energy, sharp as a tack. And not only is he smart, but he has no fear of hiring other smart people to work for him. I'd like to think I'm one of them. Arnie seemed crushed when I told him that Tracy had cheated on me, and I was going to divorce her. He asked me if I was sure she had indeed cheated, and I answered affirmatively. He didn't push for details, and I didn't provide any. We would talk in due time, and he knew that. He did reach into his card file, though, and pulled out the card for the attorney, who represents Mayone. Arnie is incredibly loyal to people who do good work for him, and he trusted the guys at Mayone, who had a small division for divorce work for people in better financial position than the average person. He told me to take whatever lost time I needed, but I assured him I only would need to take a few hours here and there after all. This should be an open and closed case, I noted. We lived in a no-fault state. Both of us would want to do right by Allison, and both of us had their own pension plans we could each keep. We could split the proceeds on the house. Boy, I missed that one by a mile. When I got home from work that night, Tracy had supper practically waiting on the table. My favorite, spaghetti supreme, and she had opened a good bottle of Merlot. Things looked so good I didn't have the heart to remind her that Jacques was the wine aficionado. I like my spirits distilled. I guess under pressure it's tough to remember everything about both of your lovers. Tracy was her usual chatty self as we ate, acting like nothing had changed between us. I waited about 10 minutes before putting a stop to the charade, finally using those famous 4 words that no spouse ever wants to hear. We need to talk. No, we don't. She practically snapped back at me. I have to admit, I was shocked at her response and her tone. I caught her, and she admitted to having a decades-long affair with her boss. She knew how I felt about infidelity. How could she possibly think I would keep her? Yeah. I was hoping we could at least talk like civilized adults before I have you served, I said calmly as I could. You can do whatever you like about having me served. I'm not giving you a divorce, she said with more than a hint of irritation in her voice. The bottom line is you love me, and I love you, and I won't let you go. I'll fight this every step of the way. You're being stupid and going to ruin the best thing you've ever had, all because your pride is wounded. I started to respond, but she wasn't done and cut me off. Up until you found out about Jacques and me, did I ever give you one reason to doubt my love for you? Did I ever slight you in any way? You absolutely got as much good sex as you wanted, and I made sure I took care of you in every way, physically, mentally, emotionally. Are we not each other's best friends? No. Nee. If you hadn't found out through some fluke, you would have gone to your grave loving me completely until your last breath. You would never have been the wiser. Can't we just go back to that? You don't love me as much as you say you do, because otherwise you couldn't have given yourself to another man, both body and soul. You knew it was wrong, so you kept it hidden from me. I don't call 2 decades of deception love. Eee. Bad enough you've been having sex with another man for 2 decades, but you admit to me you also love him. You've been intimate with him in ways you've been intimate with me. How is that loving me? Forget the sex for a moment, as if you could. Don't you see that every ounce of love you gave him you were stealing from me? I had more than enough love for the two of you, Tracy yelled back at me. He was man enough to see that, but I knew you weren't, so I never told you. And now you're proving me right. Man enough? Man enough? I wasn't man enough because I wouldn't have let you have a sex partner and semi-husband on the side. That's absolute crap. I wasn't stupid enough to let you do that to me willingly, so you made the decision yourself, for yourself, and completely. This was all about what you wanted and got. Trust me, I have no doubt that had I not found out, I would have gone to my grave a completely happy man and the world's biggest chump. And you could have just inscribed it on my fucking tombstone. Here lies Rick Avondale, the world's happiest chump. He thought life was great because he had no clue his wife had 2 husbands. Viewing and the funeral were 3 days later, on a Monday. I didn't attend either. I got up like any other morning and went to work. When I got home, Tracy and Allison were in the kitchen, still in the clothes they wore to the funeral. I went over to my daughter, who had driven in from college to attend, and tried to give her a hug. After all, she hadn't been home in about 2 months. I said tried, because the hug never materialized. At first, she recoiled at my touch, then she turned her back on me and moved away, crying softly. Tracy put her hand on my forearm and gently shook her head. Under normal circumstances, I would have taken the hint and let it be, but these were no longer normal circumstances. I growled, literally, under my breath. I went upstairs to the bedroom, got enough clothes for several days, got my toothbrush and hygiene supplies, and left. Tracy started blowing up my phone, almost from the minute I walked out. I let them all go to voicemail. I had to give Allison credit for one thing, though. Unlike her mother, she wasn't pretending everything was going to be all right. Somewhere along the line, she decided I was the victim in this play, and she was going to make me pay. Well, if she was going to make me pay by ripping my heart out, she accomplished her mission. Not only wasn't she my child biologically, but she just made it abundantly clear she was no longer my child emotionally. This just keeps sucking worse by the minute. On Tuesday, I took some lost time, went to the bank, and did the old split all the accounts into hers and mine. I closed out our credit cards, opened a new one in my name only, and made an appointment with the lawyer recommended by Arnie. He squeezed me in for Thursday. I hadn't slept in 3 days when I went to see the lawyer on Thursday. I swear to God, but his name was Mike Squelch. I was hoping he was a much better lawyer than his name made him sound. There really wasn't much to discuss, I thought. I gave him a detailed rundown of the affair and said I wanted out with my half as soon as possible. I also told him I wanted Jacques' estate sued for child support. Okay, if she was no longer my child in any sense of the word, then let her real father pay for her. I'm done being a schmuck, I told Mike. Mike said he didn't see a problem with any of it, but if Tracy was really adamant about not getting a divorce, a judge could impose mandatory counseling, and there could be a protracted back and forth. I told him to go for it, and on Monday of the following week, Tracy was served papers at Softal. I'm guessing she was served at 10:07 a.m., because at 10:08, our receptionist said that an irate Tracy was on line 3. I hadn't answered any of Tracy's calls and texts to my cell phone during the week, and I had instructed the Mayone people to send her calls straight to my voicemail, which they had been doing. But I knew that I couldn't keep ducking her forever, so I told Marlene, our head receptionist, to put her directly through to me when she called. You unbelievable asshole. I hung up the phone as soon as she finished her first curse. Phone call number 2 came 15 seconds later. Don't you dare hang up this fucking... I hung up again, wondering how long it would take her to realize that she had to be civil if she wanted to talk to me. Phone call number 3 took a little longer to arrive. When I answered, she was practically whispering. She was trying so hard to control herself. You win round 1. We need to talk, she said. Yee. That's just wonderful, I said as cheerfully as I could. You call my attorney, Mike Squelch, at so-and-so, and set up an appointment to see us. You might want to bring along your own attorney as well. Might speed up the process. The appointment got set for 2 weeks further down the road. I continued to live in a nearby motel until then, going over to my old house to mow, and occasionally pick up some mail and more of my stuff. When Tracy saw me arrive at the house the first time, she tried to greet me like her long-lost husband and started to hug me in the driveway, but I physically pushed her off of me and walked into the house. You didn't need to tell the world our troubles right out there in the driveway, did you? She asked. You endow. Hey, if I'm such an idiot, divorce me, I deadpanned. The meeting with the attorneys took place on a Friday afternoon at 3 Ever the gentleman, I let Tracy run through her argument first, the one about loving me completely and just keeping a little place in her heart for Jacques. And, of course, now that he was dead, everything would just be about me all the time. Are you willing to throw away 20 great years over this? She asked me. Can our love have meant that little to you? No, it's because our love meant so much to me that we have to end this marriage, I responded. You completely had my heart and deceived me thoroughly to get it. How can I not see this as a complete betrayal of trust, the very foundation of a marriage? You knew what you were doing was wrong, so you betrayed my trust to get exactly what you wanted, both of us physically and emotionally. But he knew and accepted it, and I was tricked into it by deception. This divorce isn't on me. It's about your selfishness and betrayal. I would never have put up with sharing you physically with another man, but sharing your love with another man goes even further over the line. This hurts worse than if you had just had a cheap, tawdry affair with a big-dicked stud. You loved this guy and fucked this guy, and even had his child. Just because I didn't know didn't make it right. You were both stealing from me. It's a good thing he died of a heart attack that day, because if he didn't, I would have shot him. Tracy gasped when I made my last statement. I was already in tears. You know, in all this, you never once said you were sorry for cheating on me, I continued. You apologized for hurting me, and I know you are sorry you got caught, but I don't think you are one bit sorry about what you did. Wah. Rick, I know we can make our part work out. Don't go through with this divorce, she said. Our part? It was our marriage, Tracy. There wasn't supposed to be an our part and your part. There was only supposed to be us, forever. Mike looked at Tracy's attorney and said, I think we're done here. Your client needs to sign the paperwork and get it back to us. Tracy's attorney, a dour-faced, middle-aged African-American woman, nodded grimly and stuck her hand out for Mike to shake. Some minor details were ironed out over the next 2 weeks, and we were officially divorced about 3 months after that. 2 days after the divorce became official, I had Mike file a suit against Jacques' estate for what was essentially child support and college expenses, although it sounded better when Mike used legalese. I probably wouldn't have done it had Allison not made it clear to me after the funeral that she wanted nothing to do with me anymore. I raised that kid as my own for 18 years, and that's the respect I'm shown. But I guess she had 4 years to think about it after Tracy filled her in, and in her eyes I was no better than a chump. 14 years then of complete fatherly love down the drain. So, no, I wasn't the least offended when Mike made the suggestion that we replace the lost respect with some real dollars, 1 million to be exact. I liked Mike's attitude. I expected a phone call from Chell when she was served, but instead I got one from Tracy. Chell probably figured I would take the message better coming from Tracy, although she figured wrong. Was this just another way to get back at me? Are you hurting for money? Tracy said when I picked up. Well, hello to you too, Mrs. Avondale. So nice of you to call. It's not like I didn't know why she was calling. You do realize this makes you look like a total jerk, right? She commented. You do realize I raised another man's child for 18 years while you and Chell and Jacques were having a good laugh at my expense? And that said, other man's child now thinks I'm nothing more than a schmuck. I don't give a shit about what any of you think. I hung up without saying goodbye. I'm guessing that Tracy expressed to Chell my position and what a stubborn bastard I can be when I'm right about something, because after first having her lawyer try to bargain down Mike, she just wrote me a check for the million. And, as it turned out, a few months later, Chell could easily afford that million because she sold Soffel to a Japanese company for $8 million. Million. With Jacques no longer there to run things, it was probably a shrewd business move. This is where the story probably should have ended. But as the old newsman Paul Harvey used to say, and now for the rest of the story, 2 days after the sale of Softall, $2 million was deposited into an account in my name in the Cayman Islands. It was my finder's fee for Nakatomi, Limited getting Softall within 9 months after an anonymous Nakatomi attorney, and I signed a deal stating just that, no matter how it happened and what role I had in it actually happening. If Nakatomi had purchased Softall by a certain date, I would get a finder's fee. I would get a finder's fee. After that date, the deal was off. So right about now, you're wondering how I played a part in the Softall deal. It's a little complicated, but the short story is, I wasn't completely truthful with you earlier in this tale. Much of this yarn was based on truth, but some of it was based on what could have been an Academy Award-winning performance given by me, the guy who appeared completely clueless. Let me explain. I actually was a clueless person up until about a month before Jacques died. Then I was approached by a certain Nakatomi attorney who wanted my help in brokering a deal with Jacques for Softall. Why do you want my help, other than the fact that my wife is Jacques' right-hand man? I asked innocently enough. Me. Because we know you are a smart man, and we figure you'd be up to the challenge and the payday for outmaneuvering the man who has been cuckolding you for years behind your back, the attorney said. To say I was in shock would be an understatement. Tracy was cheating on me, and this guy from Japan knew about it. Are you fucking kidding me? Turns out Nakatomi had been researching several firms, and when these guys research, they do everything but a body cavity search. They easily found out about Jacques and Tracy, and how Chell and both daughters fit into the mix as well. They figured, rightly, that I'd be more than willing to do whatever I could to help them. But it had to be done fast, because they were looking at several other software firms, and I had to deliver within a 9-month window. First, though, they showed me their evidence of Tracy's infidelity. They had photos, videos, phone calls, trip receipts, everything. I had everything in my hands to bury the two of them, and then they incentivized me. I make a very good living, and I didn't necessarily need the money, but they offered me $2 to help them get the company away from Jacques. Hell, at that point, I would have helped them for free, but I wasn't about to tell them that. I just had to figure out my course of action, and I had to make sure the money came to me after the divorce, so I didn't have to split it since we live in a no-fault state. But first I had to calm myself down so as not to give myself away. My honest first thought was to wait until their next tryst, break in on them and shoot both of them, but being Bubba's cellmate for the rest of my life didn't appeal to me. So I had to play it cool and continue to act like I didn't know a damn thing, something I had been doing for 20 years already. So what's the difference if I played along a little longer? I told Arnie what I had found out about Tracy and Jacques, but I didn't tell him how I found out. We sat around late one night at the plant with a bottle of Don Julio tequila, throwing out ideas about what I should do. Finally, after drinking about half of the bottle, he looked at me earnestly and said, "Damn, son, isn't it just the shits that the guy who invented cockcrazitol has his wife fucking another man? You should have slipped some of that stuff to her, Rick." That's when the light bulb went on, although I didn't say anything to Arnie, for obvious reasons. Not to her, I thought to myself. I should have slipped some of that stuff to him. Hey, wait a minute. 2 birds with 1 stone. One of the really good things about cockcrazitol is that unlike most big drugs, there are not a lot of contraindicators. In fact, there's only one fix if the prescription is followed correctly. The drug shouldn't be taken by men at all, because while it works to quiet a woman's libido, for some reason it causes men's blood pressure to spike and can cause a fatal heart attack. I just needed to get some into Jacques' hands. Jacques and I both belong to the same golf course, and we occasionally play together with another two guys as a foursome. I arranged a foursome for us the next Saturday with a stop at the restaurant for a nice lunch after the first 9 holes. The first 9 holes were good, and we had about 90 minutes for lunch and drinks before our second 9 tee time. Now you've got to remember I'm a pretty good salesman, so while we were sitting there lunching and drinking, I looked over to Jacques and nonchalantly said, "Hey buddy, are you okay? You look a little worn out." The other two guys and I were all about 10 years younger than Jacques, and he knew it, so yeah, the question played on him a bit. I could see the wheels turning when I said that we could back the next tee time up about 30 minutes to give him some more rest. Nessie. Nah, I'm just a little tired, but we don't need to back anything up for me. I'm good, he responded. Actually, I didn't think he looked tired at all, but now I was playing to his insecurity about being the old guy in the group. Being the old guy in the group. Got just the thing for you, buddy, I said as I pulled out a small bag of unmarked white pills from my front left pants pocket. A little something I keep just for myself and take every day with lunch. Gets me through the rest of the day with ease. I handed Jacques the baggie with 5 pills in it. Take one of these for the next few days, and if you like them, I'll get you some more next time we hit the links. Jacques slid one out of the baggie, popped it into his mouth, and washed it down with his bourbon over ice. He pounded his chest like a monkey and did a small Tarzan yell. "Let's go, boys." "I got the spirit moving me," he said good-naturedly. Actually, within a few minutes he probably did have the spirit moving him, sort of. A rise in blood pressure gets you pumped up a bit, which is why athletes work on being up for their game. But too much of a good thing. And for those wondering why I gave him a small baggie and not a pill bottle or a pill box, the reason is so, when he finished the pills, he would just throw the baggie away, as opposed to keeping it around so it wouldn't be found in his pocket in case someone went through his clothes when the inevitable happened on Wednesday night. For those now paying attention, those 5 pills would last until Wednesday, which was the usual night for the Jacques Tracy lovist. Combine a man's blood pressure already being raised by a fuck session with a beautiful woman not his wife, with medication that causes blood pressure to raise and spike, and you've got the making of a heart attack, most likely one that would prove to be fatal. But since it looked just like a regular heart attack, and since we live in a small city without a big crime scene investigation unit, the only way this would be investigated beyond the norm was if something looked fishy or out of place. So I made sure to play my role of newfound cuckold to the max, acting exactly as I did when I found out about the affair the month before. I must say, I even impressed myself with my thespian talents. 2 days after the money hit my account and was immediately moved to another account, I took Arnie and his wife out for a big fancy dinner, ostensibly to thank Arnie for being a great boss and sticking with me in my time of need. He didn't need to know it was really for planting the seed of my revenge. With Jacques gone from both women's lives, the bond between Tracy and Chell cooled considerably, especially when Chell had time to think about the fact that Jacques had died practically in Tracy's arms. I was also told that Tracy not being able to convince me to drop my lawsuit against the estate for back child support really pissed Chell off, although I don't think she realized that Tracy wasn't getting any of that money because we were already divorced by that point. Chell fired Tracy soon after she paid me my support money, and the Nakatomi guys apparently put the word out in their world about the affair between Jacques and Tracy, effectively ending Tracy's career in business administration. It's never a good thing when the boss dies in bed with you, I've been told. Don't cry too much for Tracy, however. She came out of this whole thing with a net worth of about $1 million, so she won't be on any breadline for a while. And she'll be able to help out her daughter. Yes, I said her daughter. Allison made it quite clear to me that she didn't want any part of me any longer after Jacques died, rebuffing me not just once, but several other times as well. I guess that's what I get for raising her, providing for her, coaching her soccer teams, and attending all of her dance recitals. Well, I guess I won't make that mistake again. Me? I guess I'm doing pretty good for a guy who lost the love of his life after 20 years. It took me a while, but I finally started dating again. I'm just not sure I'll ever be able to completely trust a woman again, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to find one that matches up to what I thought I had with Trossi. But I've got no strings to hold me back. I'm worth about $5 million, so I went into semi-retirement and now only work on special projects for Mione. Maybe one day I'll invent a pill that will make clueless husbands able to spot a cheating wife immediately. Now that truly would benefit mankind.